Man, it's got to be the scariest thing that I've done. Oh my gosh. Oh, it's coming down. I see it slowly. OMG. I can't believe this is actually happening. There we go. All right. We got the first one off. This has been the most involved work I have done to this E92 M3 to date. What started off as me removing the bumper to replace a crunched up belly pan turned into a little bit more than what I was prepared to do. When I jacked up the car, after I actually got the car settled on jack stands and lowered the jack, there came some drops of oil. I pretty much knew immediately when I pressed up against the oil pan, I feel like I must have unseated the oil pan, therefore some oil came out. With that break in the gasket, I knew at that point I needed to drop the oil pan. And needing to drop the oil pan, I realized I was going to have to drop the subframe. So with having to drop the subframe to drop the oil pan, there comes the next find: rod bearings. So just like with any other DIY service, the rabbit hole of while you're in there gets deeper and deeper. The day is here that I need to be getting this subframe down. There's lots to disconnect to begin this process. N-link is going to be one of those things that needs to get removed. There is some covers on both sides of the M3 that needs to get removed as well. What the heck is that? Is that a toilet tissue roll? What is this? Wow. I have no freaking idea what the heck that is and why was it in there. Interesting. I absolutely love this thing. Whoever designed the creeper, they are a genius. While I'm over here on the driver's side, I'm gonna go ahead and unbolt this leveling sensor. All right, so that's good. I'm gonna tuck this up here so it doesn't get pinched on the install. Got one more harness. Oh, this is not even seated in here, so that's good, I guess. I am going to actually just go ahead and fully remove this. There's two T20 bolts. I guess I can turn the rest of this by hand. All right, and got it. Easy breezy. Now the idea is, in theory, for me to go in here with one hand and with my pry tool go over the top and give it a little nudge. If I can squeeze enough to push out. Oh, do I have enough length on here? Oh, there we go. I think I got it. I can pull, yes. Whew, there we go. Now the fun is going to be putting this back on. Looks like a nut and a bolt for the bracket for this hose that I'm going to change. Got to disconnect it from the pump up there as well. So therefore, I'll go ahead and remove the belt. Fine just now as I took this belt off. It is loose. Like, it is literally loose. Now I have turned this a little bit, but I am not supposed to turn this by hand. Whoa. A few more bolts. Got some 13s on this tensioner. This needs to be removed. I've got my swivel. It's kind of hard to see in here. I was thinking I'd be able to use this Allen key to get under here, but I see what's happening now. So those two, 1, 2, you're not going to get to that with this part of the subframe still connected. So as you can see, there's one bolt there. There's going to be another one on the other side. This control arm has to get loosened so that that is able to drop. Hold on now. Let me see. Is that getting loosened or removed? Because you got to... I am not sure what's happening here. That's going to lower. Oh no, this doesn't get loosened. Let me go ahead and disconnect this power steering. Could like break it. Come out. There we go. Squeeze. Push in. There we go. And then oh boy, that's harder than it looks. Oh man, that just zapped my energy. So we're just gonna pry a little to release that tab and come forward. There we go. There we go. Well, that thing sounds good. Got the swangles. Now that that is out, I am almost ready to drop the subframe. There's a few bolts that are remaining under the subframe, of course, before I get ready to drop it. But that bracket back there, that actually needs to come off, so I need to pull those wires out and then hang them. The brace need to go on before I remove any of those bolts. That's looking pretty darn secure. I probably could get a couple more turns just to make sure it lifts up on the engine so that as I replace the motor mount, the fresh one will have more room to clear because everything is collapsed with the old worn. I went ahead and removed the other anchor. I've seen in a video where the gentleman talked about wrapping the chain, I guess, around that bolt to give more support. Look, man, this car has a lot of miles. The more you start taking out bolts and things like that, I feel you're potentially introducing another problem. I've seen in enough videos where supporting it from this hook is more than sufficient. The main thing is making sure this is as level and as straight as possible and torquing down the bolts in the area that will support keeping this from tilting, flipping, sliding, any of those things, because this will be supporting the entire weight of this engine once that subframe is lowered. Once again, Amazon comes through in the clutch with the only place that I could find a set with an E11 socket. Just make sure. Yep. Come on. Such a tough spot to be in. All right, light, you're gonna have to go. Now that tooth was up top. Okay. Yep, it has moved, so that's good. All right, we are moving. Thank God. Not gonna lie, feels kind of scary with my hand in here, cause boy, that thing was to collapse at all. Yeah, my hand is good as done. I'll be bionic, man, because they're gonna have to give me a AI hand or something. if I can get the bolt in my hand. Fingers, I do. Whew. There it is. Yeah, it did a good, it's very deep, so it did a real good job of going all the way down, so that's pretty good. Whew. Man, but I tell you, when you get that audible pop, when it let loose, that is a beautiful feeling. Here we go. Oh boy, it's on good. Holy cow. I think I'm gonna need the breaker bar. Is it turning? Yep. Whew. That is scary. Holy cow. And water was coming out on the other side. On the other one I popped. I'm not gonna lie, I may need to, I'm probably gonna replace these. Yeah, I think it'd behoove me to replace these bolts. Man, I'm glad that came out. Oh, it's coming down. I see it slowly. OMG. I can't believe this is actually happening. There's our power steering column. You can see the metal exposed in there now. So that's where it needs to finish disconnecting. Oh wow, look at this in here. This is something else. Wow. And then there's the bushing. Whew, the bushing is worn and beat. Did it actually separate? It did. Oh boy. Man, this got to be the scariest thing that I've done. Oh my gosh. There's just so much happening. Well, those that have done this 1,000 times, they're like, ah, that's nothing. But this is numero uno. Dang. So good. So I guess actually it didn't matter which of the two bolts you disconnected from. Maybe disconnecting at the bottom makes it a little easier to get this thing back on. Maybe not. I'm not sure, but I need to finish working this out. I'm not 1000% sure which bolt should have come out, but hopefully this doesn't end up being a harder job to get this back in. Yeah, I don't think that's the bolt that's supposed to come out. I think it was here. I can get to that bolt now. Looks like we got two in the same. What I can see is that this slides along a grooved shaft, so I just kind of slid it down, and I'm not sure how much more clearance I'll get for that to come out. But I think what I'm going to do is thread this bolt back in, let it disconnect from here. This knuckle moves, it turns. I'm not going to turn that, but that moves, and then this will just go back up against that. Now I'll just go back in here with this bolt just to secure it. Now look here, I'm gonna be the first to tell you, I don't know. if I'm doing the right thing here. Trying to separate these two, but what I am gonna do, yeah, I gotta be careful. I don't wanna hit in the teeth or nothing in here. So let me start by lowering. A little bit more, a little support. Let it go down. Uh-oh, but that was that bracket. There we go. I'm taking a look around because I need to assess what needs to happen now. This is the rest of that bracket that needs to come off. Now I can access these bolts. Here are all of the bolts going around the oil pan. I've done the ones already that require extended Torx bits. Now, another beauty of the guide that I'm using from ECS Tuning is the fact that it highlights the bolts in colors as to where they need to go. So these two right here are in red. So those two need to go right back in its place right here because they're a certain length. Let me get on with the get on and get this thing disassembled. All right, I do see about 4 bolts up here. They're E14s that I missed. Now, because I missed those earlier, I'm supporting the oil pan with the jack because I've already taken all the bolts around it off. So that's going to be a lot of probably a lot of tension on those bolts. Get you a set of these gear wrench E-Torx wrenches because of where those bolts I'm talking about are sitting. Regular ratchet, you know, those walls are pretty thick, and that's a swivel head. Something like this is thin enough to get in that tight space. To say other than sweet success getting this down so far. We are far from over. Oil pan's got to come out, so that's going to be a chore on its own. I think the oil pickups are going to have to come out first. From what I read, because of the way this oil pan dips down here, it has to come all the way up. And in order to come up and back and out, I want to make sure those pickup tubes are already removed. There's the first rod bearing that's going to get removed. Probably got to rotate it just, well, the oil pickups, once I remove those tubes, I'm going to be in good shape. I don't know what cylinder that is. But I'm gonna find out. This is cool, man. This is what it's all about. Golly. So I assume I'm looking at the timing chain, and those are the timing chain guides. Oh wow, this is so cool, man. You only get to see this if you have access to a shop that'll let you come this far into the process and see it, or if you do it yourself. Golly, I'm glad I did it myself. Still got a ways to go because we got to finish the actual rod bearing replacement.
So finally, I'm at the point of removing the rod bearings. Man, let me tell you, that was a job in and of itself. Well, this is a whole nother day because it gets super hot. It is so humid and sticky right now, and it is early in the morning. I have been doing this in intervals, just trying to make sure I don't over exhaust myself. I think I did actually do that 1 or 2 of the days. First thing first, if you go to the ECS tuning site, go to the link that I provide in the description. I've talked about it before, the whole go by to doing this job. There is the sheet that I'm going to use to track what is happening with each rod bearing as to which cylinder it comes out of and each torque that is done, the 6 Newton meters, 20 Newton meters, and 130 degrees. Now that is going to be done 3 times because these are what's considered stretch bolts. These are the BMW rod bolts that I went ahead and went with. I could have gone with ARP bolt. The main part is cost. These are the ones that are in there, so there's not been complaints about the bolts, only the rod bearing, how tight the clearance is. Just made sense to save some money and go ahead and go with these versus spending, you know, the extra money on the other rod bolts. Now I could say that you offset the cost by going with this particular torque wrench. It doesn't have to be this particular brand. I bought this one at Harbor Freight. The thing about this one is it's an electronic one. Not only does it measure pound feet and Newton meters, it also measures degrees. So I mentioned the 130 degrees on this sheet, so therefore you need to torque that to 130 degrees. The only other way you could do that with a manual tool is some type of gauge, or I don't remember what it's actually called. I knew with me working on this car on jack stands, that wasn't going to be something that I wanted to have to deal with. I am going to use something called plastic gauge to measure the tolerance between the rod bearings and the journal. It comes with green and red. The red one gives a range of 0.051 to 0.152 millimeters, which is out of the range that we're needing. And here is 0.025 to 0.076. So that works out really well. This is what's going to go on for the first phase of torquing. Once I tighten down to 130 degrees, I'm going to back the bolts off, pull off the cap, and then see what it looks like, what it has spread out to, and measure it with this. I'm figuring we should be within spec, but if for some reason I'm not, then I'll have to go from there.
I am officially popping my rod bearing cherry. Let's get it. Oh boy. There we go. Get the other one. All right, so I'm having a little bit of a tough time getting this to disconnect, so I am going to see if I go under here and wrestle with this a little bit. Does that help? Holy cow. Man, this is hard. There we go. All right. We got the first one off. OMG, we're about to see what is what, and I need to look at that journal too. First one off. I have to look at the scoring here in just a moment once I wipe the oil down. The great part about this is the con rods, or the connecting rods, they're fractured at a point to where this only mates to the one it came off of, so it's only going to go on one way. I like a little bit of a notch in there. Oh my gosh. Now, I don't know what that's supposed to look like. So we're at the bottom, cylinder 3. So I'm not sure if that's scoring, if I can clean that. But yeah, that's been in there for a while. The bottom one doesn't take as much of the force like the top does. So when I pop that one off, which I'm getting ready to do now, just gonna push the con rod up and slide this out from that. And let's see what we have. But here we go, cylinder 3, bottom. Let's push this up and slide. How easy is that gonna be? There we go. Pull you back down. Don't want to damage the There we go. Damaged the journal. So that works. I could have used maybe a pick tool and tried that, but I was like, nah, that's not gonna, that might cause a problem. So now it's just working this the rest of the way off. I am gonna pull this other cap off. Let me set this here. There we go. There we go. Okay, got it coming. It will just come out the rest of the way. Might have spoke too soon about this being easy. Okay, I'm gonna wait. One of the things I am gonna do is gonna hit these conrod bolts with isopropyl alcohol. Go ahead and get all of these cleaned up. And then I'm gonna spray them down, just the threads down with some lubricant, just to have them oiled up and ready to go in the connecting rods. Hello, how are you? We've got the ACL bearings right here. We've got the cap to the conrod on cylinder 3. I have the two BMW rod bolts that need to be torqued down. So we're going to go through phase 1, and then I'm going to set up the plastic gauge. Remember, these things are fractured. See that little inner ring right there? If you look, yep, that part's really shiny toward the journal, and then that side should look a little different, the rough side. So that's real shiny and flat, so that is going to set up on that side of it. Plus you got numbers. There's your 702, 702. Looks very wide. That is not what I was hoping for. Not at all. What I can say, you know, I'm learning a couple of different things. Not even a couple. I'm learning a lot from this process. That shows why it is super important to not just slap the rod bearings on and to actually measure it out. So what I do have is a bearing that is measuring to be very, very close to, if not already tighter than the clearance range BMW specifies, which is 0.027 to 0.076 mils. So that leaves me with this question here. What do I do next? ACL Racing does make an extra clearance set of rod bearings. These will come out and the ones that are up top will stay in. Here we are, the extra clearance rod bearings are in. Swap them out and let me keep these separated because see if they say anything different on the edge. Yep, it does say HX. All right, slide that in like so as we've done before. Go ahead and slide this one out. Here we have both sides looking at cylinder 6 and cylinder 2. And both doing pretty much the same thing. You got a narrow, more narrow side here. Not as narrow there. So I don't know exactly what to say here. I don't know. All right, at this point, I don't really know what else to do other than go ahead and remove the other standard bearings, the ones up top, and also put the extra clearance bearings there. It doesn't seem like it yielded much more clearance. So I am a tad bit frustrated. I'm not going to lie. So I am going to, I guess, just go ahead and remove the standard ones, put the extra clearance ones on both sides. Because these are stretch bolts, that's my only other question. I don't know, because these are stretch bolts, if that just means the fact that you have to go through the process and stretch them. Does that mean once they're stretched out, or that third cycle, does that mean I'm not supposed to take them back out? Or if they're good to go? See, I don't know if that means anything once they're stretched. I actually went to use Tinker app to try to talk to someone, and I signed up, went through the process. The person that I got identified, they've been working on cars for 15 years. They had a long list of preferred vehicles. It did not include BMW, so I declined to take that call. I'm trying not to think too much into this. I might be nuking this, as we would say in the Navy. I should be fine if I pull it back out once I measure again. God dang it, man. I'm going to do this for recording purposes so that I have this on the YouTube channel for anyone else that wants to use an AI tool like yourself, ChatGPT, to answer their question. So for the rod bearing bolts, since I have already gone through 2 cycles of stretching them, what is your suggestion for me torquing them down again for the 3rd cycle? Can they be removed, or do I need to have fresh bolts on hand? The other part to that is, if I have partially torqued and then backed out, would you consider replacing those as well because they still were stretched?
Great idea to record this for your YouTube channel. So here's what I would say. When dealing with rod-bearing bolts, especially stretch bolts like the ones you're using for your BMW, it's critical to understand their design. These bolts, also known as torque to yield, TTY bolts, are meant to stretch once they've been torqued to their final specification. Once they reach their yield point, after being torqued to 130 degrees in this case, they cannot be reused safely. This means, 1, if you've already gone through 2 cycles of torquing the bolts, they've likely been stretched. So for the 3rd cycle, you should use fresh bolts. Even if you haven't hit the full 130 degrees yet, the bolts have already started to stretch, and reusing them could compromise their strength and lead to failure. 2, if you've partially torqued and then backed out the bolts, it's still highly recommended to replace them. Stretching starts even during partial torquing, and backing them out without completing the cycle can still lead to weakening. So to be safe, I'd recommend having fresh bolts on hand for your final cycle. This will ensure that everything is torqued properly and within the safety standards, especially since these components are critical to the health and longevity of your engine. Would that help clarify everything for your audience?
I think we're good. All right, thank you. I appreciate that. I needed that because I wasn't able to get any feedback from anybody that I reached out to. So ChatGPT has become my assistant. I have to say that is what I was hoping to achieve the entire time. All right, cylinder 4 has been tested and it is looking beautiful. Instead of mixing between standard and HX, I went ahead and went with both extended clearance or HXs, and there we see the widest end is at 0.038, but as you see, it kind of tapers a bit in the middle, and we're at 0.05. So we basically fall in between 0.051, 0.038, which is the range I want it to be in to begin with. Man, all right. Just a few more of these to go. Look, I have to really tell you that I feel some kind of way that I didn't go with my first mind on the extra clearance rod bearings. I guess I just really felt that if it had been in there that long, the original ones, the standard ones will be good.
like I won't need them. And now after having gone through the measurement of cylinder 2 and 6, it all worked out. It kind of all just worked itself out. Hence life, man. Hence life. That's how it works, in that we don't get it all right the first time, and it's okay, because the lessons learned in the process is so good for us. So I don't know that without making that decision that I get the rod bearing, or excuse me, I get the rod bolts situation right either. Because there was a couple of turns I had made where I torqued it down and then untorqued it. I have no idea why I did that, but I did. It crossed my mind, but I wasn't quite sure if it mattered, because I didn't go all the way down to that last stage, that 130-degree turn or torque. So I was kind of like, it probably won't matter. But then only to realize, yeah, yes it does. It all works out. So look, man, if you find yourself making a decision and your first mind was to do one thing and you really felt in your heart of hearts to do it, you probably should do it. Most times that I have felt like I should have done the thing that I wanted to do and I didn't, somehow it would come back, it would surface that, yep, you had it right. You had it right to follow the first decision. And then there's times where I had a decision and I felt like, nope, that's not the right one. And I felt strongly about that not being the right one. And going against the grain and sticking to that decision, that was the right decision. But either way, it was in my gut feeling, my intuition, and the strength behind that decision that made that decision the right one. So, yeah, trust yourself. At the end of the day, trust yourself. Everybody can give you all the advice they want, but you have to trust yourself in the decision that you make and be willing to stand by it regardless of the results. Regardless of the results. Is this taking me a little longer than I wanted? Maybe. I'm learning. I'm just enjoying the process. There was no rush at all. At least there was at first. I take that back. There was a little bit of a rush because I was trying to get to Beamer Invasion, but once I slowed that down, I'm just like, man, take my time and just make it do what it do. Here we are. Finally, guys, we have all of the rod bearings out and everything is buttoned up as far as the rod bearings are concerned. So that is now done. OMG, like for real, there is considerable wear on both bottom and top shells. Now, considering all of the force that's pushed down from the connecting rods on the top bearing, of course there's considerably more wear there. But look, I have to say that this engine has performed very well, considering having the driver mod in mind. I don't know if that came with everybody's, but but for real, that boils down to the driver. That boils down to maintaining your vehicle, doing the oil changes and letting it warm up, and hell, driving it like it's supposed to be driven is part of like the driver mod. That's part of the experience. So we can't just blame it on one thing, but definitely doing the routine maintenance and allowing for it to get to operating temp. And I think this is a very good sign of the health of this engine. I'm looking at, let's see, as I look at these more and more, I feel like this one might be the worst. That would have been cylinder 8. And I only say that because of what I'm seeing. I guess whatever I'm seeing, it looks like it may even be delaminating a lot worse, unless that's just oil. No, that just was oil. So no. Is it the worst? Let's see. Is it the worst? No, I think
I mean, I think the wear is pretty good, pretty spot on all of them. So let me go kind of top down. I mean, you can see some that's got a little bit more wear toward a certain area versus just in the middle. I think they really, honestly, just from what I can see, they really wore pretty well, top and bottom. They look good. They look good for the amount of miles that are on them. I am not, I'm not a professional. I'm not a mechanic that have been doing like professional work, like working on people's cars and seeing a turnover of S65 engines all the time. So I have no idea what that looks like on other cars or other S65 or even S85 engines that have come in to give a comparison based on mileage and whatever. I only have my own car, and just kind of based on what I have seen from other people's content, this is where at 174 plus thousand miles, that's definitely not as bad as I've seen the ones at 30,000 miles. I've seen worse. So that wraps up today's video. I'll see you in the next one after I have finished getting the M3 buttoned up and getting the M3 started up for the first time in 3 months. I'm hoping for the best. Remember, driver mod. So if you like the content that you're watching and you haven't done so yet, be sure to like the video and subscribe and hit the notification bell so you will see the M3 start up on the next video. As always, gotta show up for yourself, love yourself before you can do it for anyone else. In the meantime, y'all know what to do. Keep driving. Salute. Sheesh. Man, I'm glad that came out. God. Man, can you imagine? Could you imagine what that would feel like right now to have stripped that? Oh my gosh, that would have sucked. Okay. Now I gotta go charge this guy, because this is the one that sits under here with me to see everything. And I wanted to get this thing lowering, so let me go charge this now and take a break.